have this whole formulated routine of meditating, of reading, of journaling, of walking, of like all these crazy things, and it might be a little extreme, but it's all been a combination of implementing one small thing at a time. What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of The Morning Takeaway here on this glorious, Tuesday afternoon, kind of expanding on a takeaway, as it is called, The Morning Takeaway. Whenever you're listening to it, whether it's the evening while you're cooking dinner, in the car on the way to work, whatever it is, I hope there's some kind of value that you are able to take out of this episode. And today I want to talk about discipline, and it's definitely a topic that I have hit on before and something that I hold very close to myself, but it's something that I was listening to a podcast the other day on, and I just felt like I needed to go more in depth on it today after receiving a string of messages from a bunch of different people, actually, with kind of the same question, with how do I stay motivated and, just kind of things in that area. So, and before we get going, I want to remind you, if you're not already subscribed and you're watching my videos, please do go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to turn on all my notifications so you're the first one to see when I release a video every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So, with that said, also leave a comment with any topics that you'd like to hear about or want to discuss further. I've had this random idea to have potential people on the podcast to discuss these topics a little bit more in depth. Maybe it's a Zoom session and just kind of, you and I go into it, maybe host 4 or 5 on an episode. We'll see how that pans out. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this episode, and I'll loop this quote in. I'm going to read it right now, but I'm going to loop it in at the end after I read the notes that I have for you in my phone, but I'll get to those in a second. So the quote on the board says, "Just because you are struggling does not mean you are failing." Now, I want you to think about that one more time. Just because you are struggling does not mean you are failing. And I think this ties directly into what we're going to talk about today within discipline. Because oftentimes, discipline causes struggle. And struggle might not be in the most physical sense when it comes to discipline, rather probably more mental. And the daily disciplines, and to kind of back up, what is the definition of discipline? And I think there obviously there's 2 disciplines. One is you do something bad, you reap the consequences. And the other is, in my opinion, how would I define discipline? I'm going to tie it all in at the end, but I think the root definition that I would call it, the definition of discipline to me, is doing the daily little things that combine to create your values as the subconscious of your standard, which is ultimately your identity. And that's a lot of words to kind of tie in that as my own definition, but I want to loop that all in with kind of this little process that I came up with in my notes before this as I kind of saw my thoughts on paper. And when you talk about discipline, I think there's 4 steps. Step number 1 would be decide. Step number 2 would be commit. Step number 3 would be prove. And step number 4 would be repeat every day, or just consistency. Be consistent. And before we get into each one of those and try to keep this relatively short, one of the questions that I got yesterday was, hey, I'm really struggling with just waking up in the morning. I don't know how you do it. Like, does your alarm clock go off at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m.? They saw that I was on a walk at 5:18 in the morning, and that's what I do. I like to go on my barefoot walks, listen to my podcasts, and listen to the waves crash, and then jump in the ocean in the pitch black. Quite the adrenaline rush, by the way. Don't know, nobody out there to help you if you may or may not lose a toe to a shark. Anyways, so the question was basically around like, how do you get motivated? And my response to this question was essentially completely discipline oriented, because I've gotten to a place in my life where discipline excites me. And I don't know that that can be taught. Rather, it's something you have to feel and you have to practice. And practice is the key word here, because there's going to be times that you get into a routine and you get into these daily disciplines and you start waking up early. Let's just throw everything out the window that you're doing for a whole day. Let's just talk about like, hey, when that alarm clock goes off at 5 o'clock, you don't hit snooze, because that ties into the third step in proving. So what I mean by that is proving to yourself, which ultimately creates self-confidence, and you're able to repeat, and you get this sense of endorphin rush and the productivity and the accomplishment that comes from, hey, I just woke up today at 5 a.m., didn't hit snooze, and you build off that, right? So I think, when we're talking about that morning goal of waking up, or whatever that goal is that you can think of in your mind, that's a hard thing to accomplish. We've all been there. It takes practice to go through a week, 8 days, getting a walk in every day, whatever it is, to do it in a row, because those first 1, 2, 3 to 5 days are, I don't want to say easy, but they're fresh, and it's easy to tell yourself, hey, like, we're going to do this again, right? But then you get into the middle of that lull and you start weaning off a little, like, oh, it's okay, I've done well for the past 8 days and I can hit snooze for 5 minutes. Well, that little voice in your head that's telling you to sleep 5 more minutes is ultimately going to create 10 minutes, then 15 minutes, then 30 minutes. Then we're sacrificing things in our morning routine to get ready for work. We're not able to brush our teeth. We're not able to prepare for the day, right? And it might be a little extreme as I say it that way, but it is that's what it turns into. We've all been in that feedback loop, and like the feedback is what is happening right there. So, with that said, I want to address that question one more time. So for me, it's discipline. It's finding something in the morning that excites me to wake up. And to me, it is discipline. It's proving to myself and saying, hey, this is who I am now. And that was what I put in my text to him. It was saying, I've gotten to a point that this has become my identity. This has become who I am. And I genuinely get, it might not sound that healthy, but I genuinely get anxiety if I'm not up to par with where I want to be, right? And who I know I am. And, I don't want to go on too much of a rabbit hole about just that one question in general and like what motivates me, but it is, like you have to find that happy medium for you and in the morning, like what is going to motivate you. And writing a list, making a schedule, sticking to that list, sticking to the schedule, and ultimately, proving who you are. So I'll run through these again. I think I'm kind of hitting on discipline pretty in a wide range here, but I want to expand on these 4 steps. So number 1, decide. I have written right next to each one of these a little notes. So for decide, I say, decide where you are, create your goals, and decide the value of those goals. So what does that mean? Decide where you are. Well, let's have a general baseline of where we are. Do I want to progress? Do I want to regress? Hopefully you want to progress, because if you're not getting 1% better, chances are you're probably taking at least a little step back. If you're hitting 5 minutes on the snooze button, you just lost 5 minutes of the day. That's 5 minutes of no, like that sleep doesn't matter. And because it's not doing anything for you, it's not deep sleep, it's not anything crazy, right? To help you recover, like different podcasts for a different time on sleep. But I think actually I do have a podcast on sleep, so go look at that one. But deciding where you are is just being honest with yourself and saying, hey, this is where I'm at. These are my goals. So create your goals. Even if it's one goal, it doesn't have to be 10 goals all at one time. Like let's master one goal and then let's keep expanding on that and progressing on that. And one goal becomes another and then becomes this long list of goals. Or for me, something that I really started doing was just like, let's wake up early. Let's start to meditate one by one. And now I have this whole formulated routine of meditating, of reading, of journaling, of walking, of like all these crazy things. And it might be a little extreme, but it's all been a combination of implementing one small thing at a time and finding what works, what feels good, and where I want to go with those. So deciding on the value of those goals is ultimately like, hey, how much is this helping you? And how much is this going to impact my life in a positive way that it's important to be disciplined, right? So like at the root of being disciplined, like you want to have those goals or you want to be a better person. You want to, whatever your goals are, provide more value to yourself so you can provide more value to those around you. So that's number one. Number two, the next step is committing. And in a sense, I guess one could argue that commitment is discipline in a way, right? You are committed to your identity, to your standards, to your values. You're committed to waking up every day on time, not hitting the snooze button. Like there is a certain aspect to discipline, which is why I have it linked as number two probably, but you commit to your decision, your goals, and your progress. And that ties into value, right? So committing is the next step. And you have to create some kind of accountability structure within that commitment to say, hey, I'm going to do this, right? So whether that's like, hey, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock and I'm going to have on my to-do list at 5:05, I'm going to check off this box at 5:05. Jocko Willink, if you ever look at his Instagram or his social media, he posts a picture of his watch every single morning at 4:30 a.m. because he has a commitment to discipline. He has a commitment to waking up early. He has a commitment to himself and disciplining himself so that he, and his identity, right? That's who he is. So next step is commitment and decide to commit, 1 and 2. Number 3, I've already hit on it a little, is prove. So I have written here, show up. And I'm going to say it again, show up. Prove it to no one but yourself. It only builds your self-confidence. You're not proving anything by doing these little disciplines to anybody else. In the grand scheme of things, like I just said, you're going to provide value to yourself, but it's also going to provide value to those around you, right? You're creating more value as a whole. You're probably going to be more productive in your workday. You're probably going to create more value for your company, whatever that is, right? And that's the external. The internal is, hey, I'm checking these things off. I'm getting these little things done. I'm sticking to my plan of being disciplined each and every single day. And it's scientifically proven. There are endorphins that are released when you complete something that you said you were going to do. So like I said, one of my favorite tools is write something down when you're going to do it. I can show you right here my entire to-do list, all right there. Everything's just completely like notes everywhere, crazy strike-throughs. Get it done, build your own self-confidence, and go through your day knowing you are the boss of your own life, right? So that's number 3. And number 4, as cliche as it is, just be consistent. And that's where I want to tie in the quote. Just because you are struggling does not mean you are failing. Within these days and within that lull and that period of time where you're like, wow, it's terrible, and like this is the one day I should let myself slip, or I should let myself sleep 10, 15 more minutes, like that's part of the struggle, and that is ultimately what discipline is doing for you in the long run. It's being able to conquer that voice in your head to say, hey, this is who I am now. And that's what I have written by this. I said, give it time. It will begin to become who you are. It attaches your values as the subconscious of your standards, which become your identity. So again, that's a lot to unpack, but in short, what we are saying is that struggle of the consistency is something that you have to learn to enjoy. And once you can learn to enjoy that struggle and know that you're not failing just because you're struggling. You are more than likely you are succeeding because that struggle is part of it, right? There's everybody, I think that's in athletics for me, like that's something that I relate to really hardcore because like in baseball, if I was striking out all the time, which did happen, there's opportunity there to stay disciplined, stay in your routine, stay practicing to get better. And then that next home run that you hit, you know that it's all paid off, right? There's mental barriers and there's physical barriers, and you break through them with your consistency and discipline. So that's where I want to kind of wrap this thing up. I'm going to generate a random question. If I said something that was meaningful, that resonated with you, and you think somebody in your own life could take something away, please do share this episode. It helps me out tremendously, and I greatly appreciate it, and it's something that I'm actually super passionate about, if you could not tell. So, anyways, it does help, and I'm going to end this thing with a random question. What do you know how to do that's useless? Easiest question ever right here. Off the top of my head, I can belly roll. If you follow me on TikTok, Instagram, I've done it quite a bit on Instagram too, but that's really how I started like this whole platform thing, is I was belly rolling on TikTok, and it just went viral and kind of ran with it. It's my party trick. I think it's kind of cool. I can go up and down. So completely useless. Well, I guess if we're taking it in this terms, it's not really that useless because it's provided me with a really cool opportunity to speak to all of you and engage with all of you. So I don't think it's useless, but I guess for my own good, if I were just to sit here belly rolling, it's not really going to do anything. So anyways, that's how this podcast is going to end, with some belly rolling. So again, if you're not subscribed already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Comment what you want to see more. Maybe if you want to talk on discipline with me a little bit, I'm happy to comment on that with you in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video, turn on the notifications, and I will see you next time. Tomorrow is Friday. Well, whatever day you're watching this, my next video that will be released is on Sunday. We got another vlog coming up. I'm excited to get that out. I love doing my vlogs. I love doing my podcast and my workout Wednesdays too, but I love it all. I don't know. But I'll look forward to seeing you there. Hope you have an awesome freaking day, and don't forget to smile.